behind every successful man or woman, there is a team. There's a team that you don't see. You know, in the special forces, for every operator to go on the ground, takes 7 other people that we don't see. In relationships, normally, one will have to sacrifice for the success of the others.
But I think for a long time with us, we done a lot of things that maybe I didn't like and maybe you didn't like, but we didn't speak about it and we just carried on and we done it. The point of this podcast is obviously to speak about those things, to speak to the people and say that we know what you're going through. We've been there from one end or the other.
In today's social media obsessed world, we all see the successes, the world record breaking, and the achievements of the people we look up to. But what we don't see is what goes on behind the scene. Hosted by power couple Dean and Alana Stott, this show is dedicated to asking difficult questions while discovering the support systems and people behind those we love and respect in media, business, athletics, and high-performance culture. Dean and Alana believe that through honest communication, teamwork, and mutual respect, that anything is possible.
Like, there's not a better partner I could choose who's equally as crazy as me, because we have a chip on our shoulder to prove people wrong, and to prove ourselves right.
I can go be the face of this. I can go do this, but I don't understand the back end of this. I have to learn business. I have to learn how this works.
Many couples in this dynamic are stuck and unable to move forward in an identity crisis.
Marcus's energy is so bad. I feel like I need to cleanse my house. It's suffocating. And then seeing him 24 hours later, he was as light as air. Yeah.
And we literally embraced, hugged. I stepped back and I said, this is exactly what the guys need.
When we can look behind the scene and learn from each other, we can finally move forward and transform into our fullest potential.
Welcome to Behind the Scene.
Yeah.
What's it about, Dean?
So the concept behind the scene is, you and I have been together since 2009. We've achieved great things together, but people people up until recently had always just seen me. They'd seen me on the bike ride, seen me evacuating the embassies. They see me with certain members of the royal family, but none of it would have been achievable if it wasn't for you.
Correct.
For you behind the scenes, doing all the work. When I do a lot of guest speaking, without sounding arrogant, I tell the audience that anyone can break a world record. And as long as you have someone behind you running the businesses, looking after the kids, sorting out the mortgage, being the campaign director. And so that's what you've been doing for me. And I've been quite vocal in telling people that. But that doesn't seem to be the case for all in the public eye.
Yeah. I think that when we discussed this originally, the concept of behind the scene was about telling the story of the people the world doesn't see. And the more that we've looked into it and the more that we've seen every single person that we see the face out there, like this is the face, this is the person, male or female, that the world sees. We're always now like, who is the person behind them? And then when we start looking into it, some people 100% don't want that person seen because they want the world to think that they're doing all this on their own. But for me, it was, how does that person feel that's behind there? Because they've obviously dedicated their life to making this person look amazing, but they're still a person in themselves.
It was interesting when the guests that are going to be soon joining us, 50% of those I reached out to agreed and wanted to come on. And it has 50% who are like, we just want to sort of decline on this. Is it because you want the world to believe that you are running yourself? Because behind every successful man or woman, there is a team. There's a team that you don't see. In the special forces, for every operator to go on the ground, takes 7 other people that we don't see. And so for me, it was just really is get them people to the front. In relationships, normally, one will have to sacrifice for the success of the others. But that doesn't have to be the case. We've been proof that actually you can both be successful.
But I think for a long time with us, we were allowing, we done a lot of things that maybe I didn't like and maybe you didn't like, but we didn't speak about it and we just carried on and we done it. And the point of this podcast is obviously to speak about those things, but to speak to the people and say that we know what you're going through. We've been there from one end or the other, and that there's a lot of ways out of it, and there's bad ways out of it, or there's ways out of it that you might think is just the final solution, that we're done. But if you can hopefully hear some of the stories from our story to the guest stories, that, you know, you can talk about it and you can say, actually, do you know, this is the way I'm feeling right now. This is what's happening. And I think we're going to hear stories of, you know, triumph over adversity, almost failing, resentment in a relationship, contentment, arguments. But hopefully the way that it was resolved and the way that it got fixed is what we're going to be.
I think for us, like, people probably now, you know, the world of social media, they probably see us and see, oh, that's the polished project. That's the polished product. You know, those two, it works for them. But that hasn't always been the case. You know, it has been a turbulent road, and we've learned along the way what's worked. And that's why it's going to be great to get some of these guests on and hear what worked and what didn't work for them, and how they are still succeeding as couples. And
I think it'll be interesting, I think, to see if those couples do understand both sides. I think we will hopefully see, like, when they start talking, or maybe I didn't realize that, or maybe I didn't see that what was going on. That'll be quite an interesting side of it. And obviously you'll have your perspective that you might be able to understand another. Yeah, you'll be relating to one more than, and I'll be relating to another. I think that'll come across.
So I'll be talking to the one that's front of the camera, then you'll be talking to the one behind the scene, because I won't know anything relatable to the one behind. But I think, no, it'll be interesting to hear different people's stories. And again, there's other people going into relationships, and it doesn't always have to be a loving relationship that you have your partner. You know, there's any relationship, but understand that actually, if you do work together, you can both be successful. Yeah. One doesn't have to pause to advance the other's career, but it's just understanding that. And
I think how you communicate that, I think it's very funny. Me and you talk about how a huge turnaround in our relationship was actually when you read my book. Because although you knew the story, you didn't know it from my perspective. Yeah. When I read Relentless, I knew a lot of what was in Relentless, but I didn't know it from that angle. I knew it from what I'd seen, or what I did, but I didn't realize it from your own.
Yeah, I suppose there's different lenses. There's your lens, there's my lens, and there's the lens that the outside world see. Yeah. And I think we'll see the lens of the inner circle as well. We'll hopefully hear about how these types of relationships can also affect the kids, and how we're actually dealing with that. You know, when you're going through your tough times, how's that affecting the kids? When you're going through the great time, how's that affecting them? Yeah, trying to balance everything. You know, we do hear a lot. Well, I had a child. Well, that doesn't mean the world stops. You can still, you know, and we're evidence for that. You know, we have 3 children now, and we are still managing to move forward and grow and learn from our mistakes in the past. And so I just think that's an excuse. It'll be interesting to see. You know, we come from another country as well. We come from UK, and we've come to America. So it'd be good to hear different people's point of views from different backgrounds. And we're not just going to focus on the military. You know, we're going to look at entrepreneurs. We're going to look at sports people, military, of course, law enforcement. There's going to be a variety of backgrounds, because I think if you just focus on one community, you're just going to hear the same thing. But I think the messaging or the feedback from those couples will be very similar to them all. You know, as long as, you know, there's going to be some common themes, and there'll be some unique themes as well. So it'll be good to hear what they are. And do you have any hopes? Do you have any, what you want to get out of it? I hope, for me, those that have responded and said they're happy to come on, you know, that was my first hope, in the fact that they remain humble and understand that they aren't in that position because of their own successes. There is someone or a team behind them. You know, I do hope the other 50% that I've reached out to see the first season and think, yeah, actually,
come on, guys, you want to get
actually,
on.
I should tell the world, actually, there is a team around me, you know, and no one can do it on themselves. Anyone who says they do it on their own, you know, talking rubbish. Everyone, and you and I do it. We see the successful people, but it's nice to see them. But then we always tend to just take a little peek around the corner and see who is that person who's making that possible.
My hope is to release the understanding of that magic that can happen when you are in a mutually appreciative relationship. I think we have been, as you say, 2009, we were together. Really soon after we got together, you were injured. We had that battle to deal with. We've had the battles of changes of careers, having babies, breaking records, raising money, businesses, moving countries, having more babies. We've had all these different things. But I'd say once the mutual appreciation really started, that propelled our relationship to a new place. And I think that if someone's already in a relationship where there's one person who has sacrificed so much for that other person, then the love is already there. Like the fact that they've been able to do that and they're going through that. And that next movement of the appreciation, I think, will be something really cool to see.
I remember when I left the military, unfortunately I had to leave the military because of the injury, and I chatting to a friend and told him that you and I were going into business together. He's like, that'll never work. You can't go into business with your wife. And I was like, well, you know, it did work. It may not be the case for him and his wife. And I think, you know, over the years, you know, you sort of touched on some of the highs and lows there. You know, some of our biggest lows is actually when we have third party business partners who probably don't have the same mindset as us, same values. And that's what's caused a lot of friction between you and I in the past. And so we can talk more about that as well. Yeah,
that's definitely, when we brought other people into this circle, I always call myself the protector. And that's not just because I'm close protection trained or whatever. I feel like the toughest guy that I know is you, and I have to protect you because all you do, there's always people looking to take advantage of that all the time. There's always people that are want a piece of you, and I've got to be the one, and you won't see it sometimes, and then we'll argue.
I always see the good in people, and coming from the military, you know, there's an environment where everyone around you have to trust with your life. And then when I exited into the world, the corporate, I thought everyone was the same, and you're like, no, that's not the case. And so, you know, you have been there as that protector to sort of deflect those people.
And I think every industry we've seen it, you know, whether we're in business, we're now in a kind of media world, you'll see that people see the skill set that you've got and they want to use you to achieve. And I'll be there. But that's cool because I'm always going to be there to do that. And we can argue as much as we want over that. But as regards the show in itself, I think that the people that we're actually aiming at, I don't think there's any, I think everybody has that slight dynamic in their relationship where one person is out there succeeding.
Yeah. For me, I just want to get a message out to as many people as possible that, you know, just because one person looks like this, you know, succeeding, you know, don't be resentful for that, you know, work together as a team, you know, because it still benefits you. You know, when your book becomes New York Times bestseller, that's great for you. You know, I won't be resentful because it still helps the family. You know, for us, it's about, you know, what's the bigger good for us as a group, not as individuals. But what's your hopes from the podcast?
Yeah, again, I hope that both sides will be able to see it and take something from it, that the person out the front will be able to see how much actually goes on. And hopefully we can talk about things that maybe the other person didn't know on both sides, because I often think as well that the person out the front, everybody will think that, you know, this is the hero, this is the person who's doing all these amazing things, but that can also be a lonely time as well. So if you're not having that full communication that we eventually got to, and there's that slight separation there can be a really lonely route for both. And I think if you're going through a certain amount of pain and I'm going through a certain amount of pain, we got an email just the other day from someone that we didn't particularly want to get an email from. And, I still get those
wasn't the IRS. No.
It wasn't the IRS. But I still get those gut feelings, when you get that awful thing you don't want to get and you get that churn in your tummy and that yucky heart feeling and everything. If you were away and I got that email, that would sit with me for the rest of the day. But we spoke about it together and immediately started joking and it became easier, and that feeling and that churning goes away. And it does make me think about all those years that I did sit with it myself because I didn't want to bother you with it, or I didn't want you getting upset by it, and I would deal with it just by myself. And I think how much possible inner damage that might do to people when they're not that problem shared, problem half kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that this is, again, when it comes to people's relationships with people's health, mental and physical, I think this podcast is going to be beneficial.
And I think for us, where we are today is probably understanding our strengths and weaknesses. That was the thing. That would be interesting to see that with the couples that we get on. What are their strengths and weaknesses? Why is one person doing certain thing and the other doing the other? So obviously when I read She Who Dares, as you touched on already, I knew elements of the story. I didn't know the timelines. But I take the bike ride, for example. I can cycle 14,000 miles, but if the fundraising and the campaign was left to me, then we wouldn't be celebrating the success of the world records. So,
but I think from doing the fundraising, I learned that, I've always known it, but money and helping people are two of my favorite things to work with. So that kind of brought over that shine with me. And I guess once I'd started to realize that writing, helping people, fundraising, all these things was my purpose, it was great. And I think that's what I definitely want to get out of each of the couples we speak to, as to what is their purpose and are they really living that purpose? Because I think, we work in the world of security and we often work with ultra high net worth individuals, and in particular possibly their children, like the next generation of people who are having to almost take over the business from their family. But is that their purpose? And they can become quite lost. And sometimes if you're following someone else's dream, you're almost following their purpose when you're not following your own. So
yeah, that's probably question I would ask is, when you were 18-year-old, what was your dream? And where are you now in achieving it? Are you still on the same path, or is that, people's paths change, but it'd be interesting to see if they have, or they've actually sacrificed that too. Because I think you can still both achieve your same dreams if you work together, but it'd be interesting to see if one has just supported the other and actually put their dreams on hold.
Yeah, true. I've spoken to many, many, many people who have put their lives and dreams on hold, and then they'll almost give me little filler words. Oh yeah, but I've got the kids and I've got this and he's doing this and he's doing this. And I think to live out your purpose is what you're here for. So I feel like even if we are in that lost stage, we can still get it. We can still go back and do it.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, not unfortunately at all, but women being women, especially in a lot of them take time off or put their careers on pause to set up a family. But, we're living proof, and we've seen it with some of our friends, you can still have a family and still succeed. I just think sometimes that's probably a natural excuse for women, is that, well, I've got children now. I said, yeah, but don't still fulfill your dreams. Don't be resentful of your family or your husband and feel like.
I think if that works together, it's all right to say that it's an excuse, but if you've got the entire burden of everything on you, plus you're making sure he's living his dreams, it's difficult to then say, well, I'm going to do my dreams. But I think how you get around that is to make sure that you're both understanding that, and it's both equally as important, and nobody's role is more important than the others. The many of the household stuff does naturally. Women are natural nourishers, and I think this is something that's really interesting in the world right now as well. We're talking about this toxic masculinity and all these various different things where, we're both alpha. We're both completely that, but I'm still very feminine. You're still very masculine. We still understand the roles in the house that we both wish to do. and we raise the kids in a certain way. So I think there is definitely room for it all, but without communication and without that mutual respect and appreciation, I think is where you're going to struggle.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear from those that have children themselves and how they're balancing, because I know you and I personally sometimes feel guilty that we are so busy that the children aren't, but then we look at our children and we've moved them to a new country and they're thriving, they're doing well at school, and it's like, actually,
I think yesterday, I think even I got a bit overwhelmed. 5 books being released in 1 year. We've got the TV shows, we've got podcasts, we've got the security business, we've got all these things. But then I kind of look at the 3 kids and I was like, I don't care. Look how healthy they are. Look how happy they are. We've made all them. We've done all these things. Like everything else will just kind of go with the flow as long as they're good and happy and healthy. And
so, what's your final message? What are you hoping to achieve with this podcast? What is it, the message you're hoping to promote?
Do you know, I'm just really excited to hear the different stories. And obviously the people that we've got on will be well-known names and will probably be doing things that are overachievers and achieving things that people might think are out of reach. But I think that I want it to touch everybody. It doesn't matter what that I feel like there's always going to be one who's going to understand the other one that little bit more, and hopefully the message can come across that we can combine these and we can work together. So I'm hoping that it touches everybody.
Yeah, I think for me is, as you said, the guests we get on, some of them are overachievers, very successful now, but they didn't start there, and we never started there either. And so the message to those listening is that anything is possible, with the right drive, right mindset, but from this podcast, the right team.
And I hope to make a grown man cry.
Hey, you want a grown man cry? Yeah. Won't be for me, that. So I don't know, might bring our kids in. Obviously. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. You can follow myself at Dean Stott on all social media platforms. Alana Stott on all social media platforms. Please stay on this journey. We look forward to the next episode.
Oh, you're not going to do the www.deanstott.com?
Well, I would, but I was criticized, and I used to explain my email address was, I will explain, it's www.deanstott.com. What's wrong with that?
You're like 92.
That's fine. Old school.
alanastott.com, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere.
Yeah. Please like, please subscribe, and follow this journey.